What is up, everybody? What is up? Welcome back to the Science of Flipping podcast. I am your host, and if you are watching this on YouTube, as you can see, I have another incredible special guest who is content rich. He's been doing this for 13, 14 years now. He's an expert, but before I get there, there's always housekeeping I got to get out of the way. This podcast is meant to give you the systems, the tools, the education, the structure to get into and create a seven-figure a year real estate investing business. And so whether I have an expert on the call or not, I am giving away all my goods. I am teaching you everything I know about the business after 10 years and doing over 750 deals here in the Phoenix Valley. And so at the end of the day, guys, I do this because I want to give back and help you guys create a life by design, something that you can strive for and know that it is possible, because I started from nothing. I started from sleeping on a couch, and 10 years later, here I am, and it was pure tenacity and fortitude. There were no podcasts I was listening to. There was no mentors. It was pure tenacity and muscling through absolutely everything. And so hopefully you guys are in a place to listen, take notes. And for all of those out there that want more, I have a book at Amazon that you can actually download for free for my listeners. Just go to thescienceofflipping.com/book, thescienceofflipping.com/book. Download it for free. It will be the e-version, but it is a book I wrote, got published, and put onto Amazon just to give you more of my story and what I've gone through and what I've been able to build here at The Science of Flipping. And so, again, thescienceofflipping.com/book. And with that, dude, I get to bring on my special guest, the man that I just, recently came in contact with. But this gentleman is no rookie. He has been doing this for a very long time. And him and I just really started vibing because I constantly talk about direct mail. I constantly talk about lists. And this is that guy. He has done over 14 million mail pieces in his career. And he has done hundreds and hundreds of flips. And so I want to introduce everyone to Gary Boomersheim. What up, dog?
What's happening, Justin? Super excited, man. This is one of the best real estate markets I've ever seen. And I love the topic, and I really hope that your whole group of listeners love it and can take some of the things that I'll share today and be able to go implement it like literally tomorrow, if not sooner, right? Because time is money, and you don't want to wait 6 months.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to maybe kind of the meat of what you've done and what you've built. And I think anyone who is listening, literally, this is one of those episodes that there's some cool stuff that we're gonna be able to show you how to systemize and really implement the business model versus doing it yourself, because that's really what it comes down to. But Gary, why don't you I won't do your story justice and what you've been able to build over your career. So why don't you take a second and let everyone know where you at least came from and what you've built as far as the real estate space and what you've gone through. Because I know you're the, direct mail guy who's just crushing it.
Right. No, that's awesome. And I will tell you, brother, you actually said the words tenacity and persistence. I'll tell you, my story is one of definitely learning through the school of hard knocks. And I wish I knew what I know today. One little thing is don't reinvent the wheel. It's not like technology. We're not Apple Computer. It's like find what works, follow the people who are really making the money, and then repeat it, do it, and then make it better. But don't try to reinvent the wheel, because nothing in real estate is really new, right? It's brick and mortar, brother.
That's it. I mean, you really say that. I don't say that enough, but truthfully, there's nothing new in real estate. The one thing I actually did find to be new, and I don't know if you've seen this, it's everywhere, is our friend Brian Page put out this very cool strategy with Airbnb. It's almost like a sandwich lease option.
Yep.
That actually is cool. Relatively new. Now, if you really think about it, it's basically a sandwich lease option. But nonetheless, because Airbnb is such a big business model, it really is pretty incredible what he's been able to build.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. So, but the techniques to find the deal are still very, very
totally
same. Your exit strategy is just a little different.
No doubt. No doubt.
Awesome. Well, cool. Hey, everybody. Super excited to be here. My name's Gary Boomersheim. I live in California. I'm a full-time real estate investor, and I'm actually a pretty sizable private lender. I lend a lot of money. I've been doing a lot of rehab lending. But real estate, I got into the business. I came out of the technology space. I was actually selling $1 million to $5 million systems. I got a kind of a technology background. That's a whole backstory. I won't bore you guys to death. But got into real estate after the whole .com era. I went full time. It was crazy. My wife and I had the 3Ms: a mortgage, Munchkin, and
you were married.
and married, right? And so we're still married. We just celebrated our 23rd anniversary.
Congratulations, dude.
My first daughter off to college. But anyway, I got into real estate full time in 2004. May 17th was actually the day I took the plunge. And oh my gosh, talk about learning through the school of hard knocks. We had a mortgage. My wife left her, big job. I left my 6-figure job, and we said, let's do it. And then actually, there's a whole story. It took me 6 months. I ended up crushing it on our first deal in Bakersfield, California. I ended up netting 181 grand on that first deal, but I made so many mistakes, and that was 2004. I've done. I'm actually working in 4 markets. California is actually the smaller market. I'm doing a ton of wholesaling right now, and I do a ton of lending as well, but mostly wholesaling. I do some creative deals if I can get the seller to, if they're interested in, being a little creative on how they receive their money. I probably do about 15 to 20% creative deals, but I'm flipping everything. I had a couple of apartment complexes, and I'm like, I am out of having tenants. So I'd say the one thing that I'm really good at is, and it actually just comes from a sales background, right? It's like, get me in front of the leads, get me in front of motivated sellers.
Yep.
And then I'll close them.
Yep.
And what I found is this real estate, business is amazing, but as a real estate investor, right? You go and you learn the strategies. Then you get into coaching and mastermind groups, and you got really good stuff, but then there's a lot of work, right? It's like, you got to go figure out, okay, marketing, you got to go figure out mailing lists, and you got to go grab, some of the best mailing lists in the country. Kent Clothier, right? They find motivated sellers now, but then you got to figure out how to use that tool, and then you got to figure out the mail house, and then it's, this postcard, that postcard. And now you got to have a system, right? It's like Podio or FreedomSoft or whatever it is. So you got all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, you got to make it work, right? Just because you have all this stuff, somebody actually still has to run it. And then you got to get VAs. It's like, oh my gosh, now I got to hire people. And so what I think that I've uniquely solved for a small group of us is, let's just get rid of all that brain damage. And I created a group a few years ago called REI Vault, where it's like, hey, let's just have one staff that are experts that we can all just share and get rid of the brain damage and give us qualified, right? It's the result, right? And so Anyway, I got lots to share on that. Love real estate. I love this niche. Love the people. In fact, we just got together a few months ago with a bunch of us doing it. So
talk to us a little bit more about, I talk so much about direct mail. I mean, literally it has been, oh my God, probably well over 90% of my business has come from direct mail, whether it's, flips that we're getting, whether it's wholesales or wholetails. I have 3 different exit strategies. But, I always talk about motivated sellers versus property avatar, right? And I tend to lean towards property avatar, meaning I want a house that is a certain year old, has been owned for a certain amount of years, has a certain amount of equity, in zip codes that I want them to be in with a certain value. I think those are the primary, for me, is the list that I'm going to go after. But if you're going to talk to a brand new investor and they're like, I have $500 to spend every month on direct mail, what is your suggestions on what direction they should be going?
Yeah. Well, gosh, you brought up a bunch of questions. So first and foremost, I like to simplify it. Most of us are working like, let's say 250,000 households, right? We got a market. You're in Phoenix.
Yep, that's about right. It's what I do. It's about work 250.
Most of us, our market's about 250,000. So instead of going out and having a market to everybody, it's like, what are the best, highest likelihood houses that are gonna move, right? And I'll tell you that are gonna sell, and typically sell at a discount, because we're looking for usually equity.
Yep.
And so I'll tell you what I found. And this is a formula. In fact, we pull this list for all of the people in our group because it's a little hard to get. And so we just said, hey, let us do it. I hired one of the largest hedge fund. It was a group in India that backed Waypoint that bought over 28,000 houses. They're actually part of Colony, which is one of the second largest hedge fund in the country, if not the world. So I have that tech team, a bunch of geeks in India that are pulling and managing the mailing list. I'll tell you what we found. A list of mostly absentee owners, mostly inherited properties, and mostly free and clear. That combination, and it's a huge list. There's actually, out of 120 million single family properties that we all have access to at ListSource, or, there's a lot of different data providers that you can get it, but it's all the same. It's county recorder. But of 120 million, about 18 million are on this list, but a little hard to get. So a lot of people are going after the absentee list. Why is absentee, or why, non-owner occupants? It's because we're looking for burned out landlords. You're looking for people that are tired. If they've inherited the property, right? It's a lot of people, they just want to be done with it.
Absolutely.
So that's crushed it. The vacant list has been huge. So in most markets of the country, if it's not overly saturated. And then the third, we call it the shipwreck list. And it's actually made up of a whole bunch of stuff, but code violations is huge. It's a small list. It's a local list, but code violations, right? Somebody has too much trash in front of the property. That's a good indicator. It's called the recently deceased. It's like a pre-probate list. That's been absolutely huge. So probate, traditionally everybody talks about probate list, especially a new investor, right? Go after probate. There's actually a pre-probate list, which is people that have recently died. That information comes out from the Department of Social Security, all right? And that's published weekly. And then we've actually been able to figure out, okay, how can you take that list of recently deceased who actually have a house and they have equity?
Right.
You think that's a good list? So that's huge. That's a really large list. Tax liens is huge. So we pull that from 3 different data providers around the country, and then we're pulling it against equity. If that makes sense. But so for a brand new investor, if I were saying, hey, what's the best list that you could get really, at the right price, I would say go for the vacant list. Vacant, free and clear from Kent. That's probably the first place to go. Second thing, I'll tell you, you ever talk about ListSource and absentee owners?
Yeah, I think I do talk about both of those from time to time for sure.
Yeah, okay. So I'll tell everybody, I know I'm getting in the weeds, but here's what most people do. And they go out and they pull an absentee owner list, typically from ListSource, but they're putting the last sale date. So they'll go in, they'll put 2004 as the last sale date, right?
Yeah.
But most of the gems don't have a sale date. So it's literally blank. And so most of the really good properties are missing. So what we tell everybody is, hey, if you're just doing one thing, get the whole absentee list and then search yourself, because that's where most of your competition is not searching.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And one of the things, in Phoenix, one of the hot lists is just anyone who bought their home from 2009, 2012, right? When we were at our bottom. And it doesn't matter. We literally have zero filter on it. If you bought it 2009 to 2012, you were on the list. And if you just pound that enough, you can get deals just for nothing else, that the person has lived there anywhere from 7 years to 5 years to 7 years. So there's a good amount of equity, because we've had something like 35% value appreciation, right? Which is a substantial amount in certain micro pockets, even more, right? So now I don't care who you are, you bought at this time, I want to crush you. I want to talk to you because you have a good reason to sell, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And how would you, let's just use any of those lists you suggested, and I think they're all great. How often would you tell someone to mail the same person?
Yeah, so I'd break it up. When you're thinking about mailing lists, there are really 2 categories. So you got those people that have equity, and then you have those people that are probably more motivated because they have some economic change in their life. Death, code violation, tax lien, probate. right? Typically the equity is a big list. The motivation or economic thing is a small list. So if it's an equity list, right, you're pulling an absentee owner list, or we pull the invisible list, you want to mail it no more often than every 60 days, typically every 60 to every 90 days. And then you want to mail it for a total of 5 times. That's the secret sauce. And I could actually tell you, we track all the metrics. We're doing about 500,000 pieces of mail.
Wow.
I know last year for a small group of us, we generated over 150,000 seller leads that we tracked. And I know around the country exactly what works, whether it's yellow or whether it's white, whether a local number. Don't put a website on it as an example. Don't put a website on your marketing. It kills the marketing. But every 60 days, if you have a motivated list, about once a month. And if you can, every 3 weeks.
Sure.
So I'm living in a house in California. It actually, very small list. I got 100% response rate. My wife and I were looking for a new house, and I bought it with $250,000 worth of equity in it, by the way, in Northern California, which doesn't get you much in California, by the way. As you know.
I'm from Northern California. I'm from Marin County.
Oh, okay. I'm in Danville. You know where that's at.
Absolutely.
So I mailed, and I actually mailed every single day. So every single day, the same sellers, and every one of them called me. 100% of them called me to be removed from the mail. All right? I called them all back, and I did my typical thing. I tell everybody, hey, those people that ask to be removed from the mail, the angrier they are, the better the leads, because there usually is a problem, and they're usually fighting over money. They're having some sort of divorce, so they're not really angry at you. So I got on the phone with the lady. Name's Ruth. We bought it in 2010. She said, please remove me from the mail. Talked to her for a few minutes. I put her on a follow-up letter. The third follow-up letter that she called me back 3 months later, I bought the house. Isn't that crazy? Wow. Yeah. So, but that's a little bit more drastic. Sending out mail every day is probably...
That's definitely an outlier for sure. There's no doubt about that, right? Right. And so what I would say is I'm not very far from you. I would say, if you have a list, and I'm a once a month kind of guy. I think if you start to space it out, and I also would say you got to hit these people 6 times, right? So if you do every other month, which can be fine depending upon your size of list, right? So if you have a big list, you're not going to send out, like I send out roughly 80,000 a month because I have roughly 250,000 people I mail to, right? So they do get hit quarterly. So ultimately they're getting hit 4 times in the year. But that's just because I'm not built necessarily to send out 250,000 every single month. And even if we could, you'd have to be built pretty big because in my opinion, one lead guy can take roughly 90 leads a month. That's about as many as they can effectively work, right? At most. And it's really probably closer to like 60. So I think it's just a combination. If you're starting out there, I would say absolutely. Like if you have a list of 2,000, I would hit 2,000 every single month for 6 months and go get your first deal because your deal's in there somewhere. It's just repetition.
Right. And by the way, the marketing actually should never end.
Ever.
I say 5, by the way, it's either 5 or 8. I know you say 6. Here's what we do. We actually mail 5 times we'll mail 5 times every 60 or 90 days. And then we'll go pull a new list, yep. Even though a lot of the same ones are going to be on there. There's no need to pull the list over and over again. It's pull it once, mail it, and then pull more, right? If it's a what we call a shipwreck list, the ones like tax liens, et cetera, you're going to be mailing those 5 times, typically once a month or more often, but you should be pulling all the new stuff, right? Yep. Anything that comes in, it's either pulled. Now, here's the good thing. All this conversation about what to do and what list, I still think it's all brain damage, right? At the end of the day, do we really care or do we want the result? All we want to do is know, hey, I'm going to put $1 in, right? I'm going to put $1 into my black box. When I have this black box, I put $1 in and I want to know I'm going to get $10 out. Yeah. And you want to do as little work and have as much free time and not have to worry about hiring and managing and training and keeping people busy, right? Isn't that the end of the day? So it's I wanted to,
I mean,
how
what
can
you're
you,
saying is exactly what this podcast is about, is how do you build a true business, not just a high paying job? Because if you're doing the lead managing, the marketing, the acquisitions, you're working every angle, which is fine. When people are starting, that's what it is. But when you build a business, and this is going kind of towards what you've been able to build and what I want you to share with the people, is to be able to leverage all of the minutia that doesn't actually drive you revenue, like a list, getting the mail out, potentially even taking in the lead, to the point where now you can at least be the one person that goes and negotiates, which is the revenue driver. To be able to outsource that is incredible, right? So I have a full office with a team right behind me. My door's right there. There's a whole team out there that does all of the things, from marketing to lead gen to acquisitions to everything, so I can live the life I want, right? Like last night I was like, I feel like going to Miami. I booked a flight to Miami because I can. And I know you've built something really, really special. And I think you've kind of opened the gate. I'd like you to talk more about what REI Vault is, and how it can help the newbie to someone who's like, I do everything. I'm freaking out. I make $500,000 a year, but every little piece of my business I'm doing, in all of the different angles in between. So if you can kind of talk about that, that'd be awesome.
Sure. And actually, it's interesting because it was more of an epiphany than anything else, and actually it worked. It was actually in 2013. So let me, if we take this business, right, that we're buying brick and mortar, and we want to buy 3 houses or 20 houses, and whatever our plan is, or we want to make 500,000 this year, or we're going to make $1 million. We got to have marketing. Do we really care about whether it comes from Facebook or pay-per-click or direct mail, Craigslist ads, bandit signs? At the end of the day, do it all as you grow, right? But you can't do it all, and you have to focus on one. So it is marketing. Marketing is, how do I get eyeballs to see my stuff that are motivated and come in and put up their hand and typically give you the phone number. It says, hey, and we don't care whether it's a hang up, right? Or they said, hey, come over here today. But all marketing is to get the person to call, or the person to fill out a lead online. So that's number one. Number two is a system. So you do have to have a system, and it's actually systems, right? You got to have the phone system, you got to have the CRM, because you don't want to do it via email. It's almost impossible. Correct. Then the third thing you need is a phone team, because there's a massive amount of kissing of frogs. Would you agree with that? Kissing a frog.
Yeah. There's plenty of that.
Right. We did 6 deals in one of my markets last week. Okay. We ended up getting 6 deals under contract. 5 of the 6 came from people at least 2 months ago that said they were not interested in selling their house at that time. Okay. One of them, of the 6, said there was a hang up. So all 6 deals were not anybody that came in that was a good hot lead that was motivated. And I'll tell you one little thing for everybody is, a lot of people are looking for like the perfect motivated list, the perfect postcard. They're looking for, I just want qualified motivated sellers. All right. It doesn't exist, right? Just assume on the front end that all leads suck, because you do have to talk to them 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 times. So if you can get the marketing to get them to call, you got the system, so you capture their phone number and you can call them, and then you have a phone team that can actually do it super cheap, right? Then you just have a consistent flow of deals. And so I don't know if that, I saw that, it's classic sales 101. And I went to a mastermind. The same one. It's one of the top mastermind groups. You guys, it's the boardroom, but it was a couple of years ago. There were about 100 of us, and everybody had the right ideas, but everybody has to go off on their own and then implement. They got to go buy the systems and buy the lists, and then figure out how to get the VA. It's this VA or that VA. Do I go to Outdesk? So I said, gosh, guys, what if we actually just had one team? And so I built the team. We have 40 people in 4 continents right now. I got a large team in the Philippines. I've got a large team in India. I got some people in Costa Rica, because they're all good. Indian people are terrible on the phone, right? Costa Rica and the Philippines are great. So we have one large team that does nothing but manage pulling the mailing lists, right? So if somebody has the vacant list, we'll tell them, hey, get access to the vacant list from Kent. And then our team will log in and do all the special pulling and dealing with the spreadsheets. And then we've got the same team, they're going out, they're pulling the invisible list, right? The inherited list. They're going out and getting all that stuff, breaking it up so that we're dropping mail consistently on a plan. So it's like, hey, here's what I want to target. Here's my budget this month. $1,500, $800. I've got a lot of people who are doing $10,000 to $15,000 a month in marketing. So we keep that going out consistently. We set up the systems and have one team. We actually use Podio. So we.
So do I.
Yep, one large team. I think we're actually the largest Podio user. I know I see the bill. I think we're one of the largest Podio groups in the world, actually.
Sure.
I know for Globiflow, by the way, we have 340,000 flows, by the way, in Globiflow.
That's one or two more than me.
And nobody has to worry about it. We have a team that manages it. Somebody says, hey, how do I do this? Or can I change this? All the text sequencing, right? Leads come in, instantly you should text message a hang up. So we set that up. If they're not interested, they should go on a long-term drip. They get slide broadcast, email campaigns, and text messages, right? This week, next week, with the right words. And so our team handles all that. And then we have an optional phone team where we've got trained, we call them sales ninjas, that actually are calling, and this is fairly new. We just did it because our group was just saying, hey, could you solve this problem for us? So I can have a sales ninja, that's covering 4 or 5 people because they're only working an hour or 2 hours a day for you, for you. So we just get this massive leverage, and we do that for about 250 of us.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why I wanted you on for sure is you have so much massive experience with direct mail and lists. But at the end of the day, you've built something really special. And I know there's only a small group of people that have REI Vault or access to REI Vault. But, I have 10,000 downloads a week with our podcast. And I preach you need to outsource, and you need to build a business, and you need to hire, and you need to be able to not do all of this stuff yourself. And once we got introduced, I was like, all of my listeners have to hear from you. They have to know more about direct mail, but also about this, business that you've been able to segment and help investors, whether you're just beginning or maybe you're higher level, where it's like, I need this segment of my business. I need to hire someone. I don't want to bring them into the office, and to be able to say, hey, Gary, here's what I need. Does that fit the box? And I'm like, I just needed you to get out there to my listeners. And so tell the listeners where to find you, because REI Vault, I mean, it's bigger than what you even said. I know it more, right? Like, you've really started to segment every side of our business and put systems and implementation. To your point, you have 340,000 flows in Podio. My Podio is super basic. I probably have 4 flows in Podio, right? But that works for my business, right? So tell everyone where to find you, and really, because reivault.com, and at the end of the day, guys, here's what I would tell you. He's going to hook you up with the goods, right? I mean, he's on my podcast. You're listening to him. Go to wherever he's about to tell you and mention that you heard me on Justin's podcast. Say The Science of Flipping, say Justin Colby, say whatever you have to say, so he knows, okay, this guy heard what we're talking about. He needs some value. Let me hook him up with the goods, right? Because there's a lot of things that he has that are super special. And I said, if you're going to come on, I want you to make sure you treat my people right. So mention The Science of Flipping, mention Justin Colby, but tell them where to contact you or your team.
Yeah, I think the best place to go is go to join, so JOIN, so joinreivault.com. This is an invite-only group. We also offer market semi-exclusivity, which means once we put somebody or a couple of people in a market, we don't want any competition. So it's not like we're, it's not a course or coaching or anything like that. Once we have somebody, like a lot of the markets are already locked up. So it's an application that you're going to complete. We want to make sure you're a really good fit for us and we're a good fit for you. And there's an application there. You can really find out everything that we do. Fill out the application. We send you a lot more information. Here's exactly what we do, how it works. Then we'll get on a call and make sure that we're answering all your questions. If you think it's a good fit, then we join. I should tell everybody that our service, this is based on feedback. Our service is the cost of one VA. So it means we're going to do everything for you. We're going to pull the mailing lists. You're going to get access to it. We're going to set up Podio. We give you access to Podio. We have VAs that process leads for you. That will actually pull comparables. So every good lead, they'll log into the MLS or log into RealQuest and pull a property profile, because that's important. When you get on the phone with a seller, you want to know, hey, you want to be smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the pictures of the property, all that's included. And it's the cost of about one VA, which is between $5 and $8 an hour. So it's one VA. We used to do it. I had no idea, Justin. Originally, I said, hey, why don't you guys cover the cost and give me a cut of the profits? And we did that for like the first 50 of my friends. And then we started growing, and it was like, how do you manage an R&D budget? And it was crazy bookkeeping. I asked everybody, and they're like, if you could do all this, you got a team of 40, you got the marketing gurus, you got the VAs, you got the Podio people, and you got the phone people. If you could do it for the cost of one VA, that would be awesome. And so we've done that. So go there, go to joinreivault.com. We're not a vendor, so it's an invite only. We want to make sure that you're a serious and experienced investor. We are taking some people that are fairly new. We just want to make sure that, hey, you know what you're doing, and this is because there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of work on our part to do it right.
Yep.
And so joinreivault.com, and if you think there's a fit, we'd love to chat with you. And there's no sales pitch. There's no nothing. It's just we want to make sure. And if you come in, you get a lot of information about how to do this. Like use yellow paper versus white. I can tell you if you want to ask while we still have time, I can tell you, hey, here's some things that work really, really well, and in what markets, and if there's a fit, great. So our way of giving back.
Use a corporate, like my company's name's Phoenix Wealth Builders, or would you go personal Justin Colby?
So for doing this marketing, it's direct response marketing. You don't want any branding. So the branding does not work. And when I started this in 2004, I did everything with branding. I tried like the UV color and the coding and the color and the graphics. It doesn't work. It's the words, it's the copy and the words, and literally typewritten. The uglier, the better. If I showed you, by the way, if you come in, I've got tons of marketing, and you can have access to it. Like I can just tell you, like one of the best follow-up letters that you can get access to is gets a 25% response rate, Justin. 25%. So yellow letters, a lot of people say, hey, what about yellow letters? They're really expensive typically for going and trying to get a seller to call. Postcards are a lot more effective, right? Better price.
Mm-hmm.
But the follow-up letters, you send this follow-up letter that says, hey, we recently spoke about buying your property. I'm not sure if your other options are have worked out. Gets it 1 out of 4 people you mail it to will call back. We have an offer package. You click a button and a FedEx package literally goes out with 2 signed contracts and a return envelope done for us. We click a button, we put the price, and that goes out.
Nice.
So we'll show you what it looks like, and then whether it makes sense for you to be a member of REI Vault, or you want to use our stuff and test it yourself, go for it. We guarantee the lowest cost mail, by the way, just as a little note. That was something new, just for our members. We're doing, I think actually this month we're at 600,000 pieces.
Nice. It's just a couple. I do 80,000 a month.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, hey, thank you very much. Join reivault.com. Dude, thank you for the time. I'm big on making sure people have implementation systems and tools. And dude, this is killer, man. This is absolutely killer. So thank you again, man.
Awesome. Great chatting with you, Justin. See you, everybody.
All right, guys. That is it for this episode. I will see you on the next episode. I am your host, Justin. Peace.